Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Welcome to another of our project orchid videos. This project has been called, since it started, the 2025 Project Orchids. It's going to get renamed the 2025/6 Project Orchids because I've decided to carry it through so that we get 12 months worth. And we started this project later in the year, not right at the beginning. We started in May. So I'm going to run this through into next year so that we get 12 months worth stored away in a playlist. So, you know, if you're interested in watching the progress of any of the 5 chosen plants, then you've got a playlist to come back and have a look and see them progress. It's sometimes interesting to see how quickly plants grow, especially with orchids. Some of them are incredibly slow and some of them romp away, you know, grow like weeds, as the expression says. Anyway, so we are going to extend the project into next year. Now this update is a full update, so we will be doing the comparison at the end, and last time was an intermediary one, so we had a look at the plants but we didn't do the comparison at the end. We will this time round, and we will be comparing with what they looked like 3 months ago, because obviously we are doing these videos at 6 week intervals, and we've had 2 lots since the last comparison run. So we'll be looking at what they looked like 3 months ago, which is, you know, back into the end of the growing season basically, whereas we're now in, you know, midwinter, or heading towards it anyway. Yes, so the comparison will be on the end where we put the still that was produced 3 months ago alongside the still of what the plants look like today in this video. Okay, so let's get on with it. I'm going to do the same as I usually do. I've got my blue backboard out, I've got my turntable out. I'll set the camera up on the tripod for the first 4, but I'll have to handheld for the last one because it's too big. I have to get much farther away and I can't do it on the tripod. But we'll have the camera on the tripod, we'll have a look at each plant in turn, have a chat about how it's growing, what progress we've got, if any, and yeah, and then at the end of each video clip, right at the end, we'll do the comparisons. So let's get going. Okay, here we go with plant number 1 then, and this is the Masdevallia falcata. Now, the last couple of times we've looked at this, it's had a bloom, or 2 I think in one case. Got no blooms this time, and there's no sign of any coming. You have to bear in mind, you know, we're in mid-December, we're 1 or 2 days away from the least amount of daylight in a day, and the short days have an effect even on cooler growers that are happy with my temperatures. They're not happy with the day length. Nonetheless, this is growing. We've got new leaves showing. You can see the difference in the colour, not quite full size yet. So we do have new leaves coming out, and we've only dropped a couple of leaves, not many, so I think we've gained more than we've lost this time round. We've got some roots in the pot showing. There's a couple of old tired ones, but there's some that are active. So all in all, this plant is doing fine, and that leaf's coming off. I've got a thing about when I see leaves that are starting to look a bit odd on a Masdevallia, I take them off straight away on the grounds that there is I don't know whether it's a fungus or something like that, but it's called Masdevallia leaf drop. Appropriate name, because that's exactly what happens, and if your plant gets it bad, it will dump most of its leaves overnight and they don't come back. The plant effectively dies. So I think that any untoward leaves need coming off in case there's an infection that could then spread to the whole plant. That's the theory, and I could be totally wrong, but that's what I do with my plants. So as far as this one's concerned, it's progressing okay. I'm happy with its progress. It's not going downhill, It's slowly going uphill, and I suspect its rate of growth will increase as the day lengths increase. So that's the first one. And the second one is my Coelogyne cristata. Now this has subtly changed since last time we looked, and certainly changed a fair bit from 3 months ago, which is where we're going to do the comparison at the end. The basic difference is that these two bulbs, the latest two bulbs, in comparison to this previous one, were an amount smaller. Well, they've actually carried on growing, which is absolutely brilliant. And we have 2 flower spikes on the latest growths that are pushing on nicely. We will get blooms on those. But what we still haven't got is roots pushing out from these rhizomes. This rhizome comes from right back here. Sorry, back here. Yeah? And it has no roots, none at all, despite it effectively sitting on the media, but it's not rooted yet. So it is a bit of a problem, because obviously it's surviving on roots from right at the back of the plant. But it's not only surviving on those, it's producing full-size bulbs and it's producing flower spikes. So it's obviously okay, you know. But yes, we've got some leafless bulbs at the back end, 1, 2, 3, and then this is a leafless bulb, despite it being immediately behind a new growth. So that's a growth I wasn't expecting, really. And then coming in this direction, a smallest bulb, followed by a full-size bulb with leaves on both of those and a flower spike. So I'm very pleased with the progress on this. It will have to go in something bigger, but I'm going to wait until after it's flowered and I see the new growth start. And then we'll see what we can do with those and see if we can get some roots. So we'll probably take a bit of the back end off. But this will all be well into next year after the flowering. So anyway, as far as I'm concerned, that's progressing. It's doing okay. I don't know whether these will lift off yet. These are the sheaths that the spikes come out of. They make the whole plant look tatty, quite honestly. They do just peel off. They do come off, so to sort of tidy it up a little bit. And yeah, we'll see how it does. But at the moment it's doing okay. The spikes are progressing very slowly. Again, they will start to progress faster and get to their point where they produce their buds as the longer days kick in next year. All of these marks on here effectively are a sheath of a bud. So in behind these sheaths are buds. So there should be quite a few on each of those spikes. They're good spikes. So that's that one. And the next one is my Miltoniopsis Herralexandre. Last time we did a Project Orchids video was 6 weeks ago. That's not where we're going to compare to, as I've said. But 6 weeks ago, the first bloom on this spike had just opened. And I mentioned that when they open, they have a creamy tinge. That's now gone. Yeah? And what I am pleased about is heading up towards nearly 7 weeks later, we've still got the 2 blooms. Yeah? But as you can see, that creamy tinge has now faded to pure white, and that's the colour that you get after a few days after it's opened, and then it stays that colour until the blooms start to fade. But attractive blooms, very fragrant. As far as the plant is concerned, that spike is coming out of this relatively new growth as it started to mature. We have another growth here, no sign of a spike on it, and then we have this growth here that didn't mature properly, so it stayed as an immature growth. But yeah, the plant itself is doing okay. It's healthy looking, it's got roots, It's got a reasonable amount of roots as well. Some of them are active, they're new. There's some floating across the top of the pot, and it's holding its blooms very, very well. You know, as I said, it's 6+ weeks, heading towards 7 weeks since that first bloom opened, which was the left-hand one as you're looking at it, and it's not showing any signs of fading yet. There's no sort of browning around the edges or anything. These are still good-looking blooms. So, well pleased with that. Doing fine. Miltoniopsis are not that easy to grow. They are fussy. They don't like disturbance. They don't like change, providing where they are is fine for them, if you see what I mean. Otherwise a change would possibly be inevitable. But providing they're in suitable temperatures, suitable light, an amount of air movement, but they certainly don't like airflow directly on them. That would be classed as a draft. They've got very, very thin leaves. They dehydrate, so they don't like an air blast on them. And they like reasonable humidity, and they don't like to be soggy in the pot. So providing all that's okay, fussy tykes, aren't they? Then they remain reasonably happy and they grow reasonably well. But if you start deviating from their comfort zone, then they can go downhill quite quickly. They're not the easiest of things to grow. And if you're sitting there thinking, well, I grow them and they're really easy, well, that's because your environment's right and they're happy in it. That's all you need. Plus, with Miltoniopsis, it does pay to start with a good plant. Not start with one that's already going downhill, because they're not the easiest to recover if they do that. So, you know, try and make sure you've got a healthy plant, a reasonable sized plant that's got some roots, and you may do okay. Right, that's that one. Right, and the next one is the Pleione Tongariro. Now last time, not the time we're comparing with, if you go back to that, which we will do the comparison at the end, as I've said, these hadn't completely dropped their leaves 3 months ago. About 3 months ago, it was only coming into autumn. It wasn't actually the middle of winter, was it? Currently, they are dormant. And in here we've got the big bulb. That's going to hopefully produce, I was going to say, that's going to produce the new growths. There's the new growth. That will be a bloom. Yeah? Only one at the moment. That doesn't mean to say it will only have one. And there's a couple of little bulbils that got stuck in the pot as well. So we will get a bloom on that. And then in here was another bulbil that we took off and planted up separately. Now all of those are completely dormant. Yeah? And then when I talked about these in the envelope last time, these were from my friend Helen, and in here are a mix of flowering size bulbs and bulbils. If you have a look on this one, the new shoot showing, yeah, that's probably going to bloom. And there's a new shoot on that one too. Look, ooh, if you look on this one, 2 new shoots on that one. Yeah, so these are starting to move. Now when those shoots start pushing on at a reasonable rate, which I'm hoping they don't do in the middle of December, I was hoping they'd do that at the end of January, which is more like the time they ought to be doing it. But nonetheless, if they start to grow and those shoots start to progress, then they will need to be potted up, which means these will come out of their pots. I'm not going to leave them in there. I'll take them out, pot them up in some fresh media for their growing season. But we have a problem with these that is easily solved. As far as Helen thinks, she thinks these are possibly Tongariro, the same as these. And my original plan was to pot these all up together in some nice clay shallow pans to get a nice show. That was my plan. But these might not be Tongariro. So why take the risks and mix them all up together when I can pot these up separately? So I'm going to keep these separate. Some of them will bloom. When I see them bloom, we can do a direct comparison, and they are either Tongariro or they're not. So that makes more sense to me. But yes, we have signs of life in places, and as I said, if you look at the size of this bulb that I grew on, compared with the size of the others which are flowering size, Helen's been keeping them long enough to know what a flowering size bulb is. Mine's a hell of a lot bigger, and yet I've only got one new growth at the moment. I'd expect two on there, quite honestly. Still, we shall wait and see. But totally dormant at the moment, but showing signs of their new growths. So there we go. There's not much more you can do with these. These do go totally dormant in the winter. They have to be kept totally dry. Oh, better water them a bit to stop them shrivelling. That's the last thing you want to do. They rot quite easily if they get wet when they're dormant. Wait until they start to grow, and then put them in some very damp media. Not wet, just damp. Just enough for the base of the bulbs to think, I think there might be some moisture out there. Let's send some roots out. Yeah, that's what you're trying to make them do. You're trying to make them grow roots to go and find moisture and nutrients. And when they are growing and pushing on nicely, they actually feed quite heavily. They're not light feeders. They're quite heavy feeders, as long as they're in active growth, obviously. Right, so that's those. Right, and the last one is the Cymbidium, which is, I can't get the camera far enough back without moving loads of staging and stuff like that, so I've taken the camera off, we'll hand hold it. It also sticks out the top of my backboard as well, and we're not going to be spinning it round or anything. It'll bend all the leaves, we'll just leave it as it is. But we can see the back end of the plant, which has got leafless bulbs, many. They're going to come off when I repot it. And what we've got left are the previous bulb, which is leaved, and the current bulb, which is leaved and has a flower spike and is a reasonable size. So effectively we just have a front end to this plant, and the back end is of little use to a degree, although it does hold some nutrients. I suspect when I pot this up I will keep 3 bulbs. I might try and keep 4, but I will certainly keep the 2 with leaves on. This is the only Cymbidium that for me appears to be going downhill faster than others, but it may just be one of the types that doesn't hold its leaves very long. You get some hold their leaves absolutely ages, and you end up with a huge pot full of bulbs and they've all still got their leaves. And then you get others that have leafless back bulbs and just a front growth area with the leaves still on. But the comparison that we're going to do next, I don't even think, there might have been a spike showing, I can't remember, but I don't think it shows in the picture. Last time we filmed this we had a spike, but we certainly didn't have any blooms. And this time round we've got the spike fully open. This blue backboard is playing tricks. It's sort of changing the colours a bit. Anyway, I'm pleased with the plant as far as the fact it's pushed up a nice spike. These are good sized blooms, and we've got a good number of them. One blasted, you can see the stump where it was. All the others opened up fine, but one did actually blast, so we're one less than we should have been. What have we got? 2, 4, 6, 7, so there would have been 8 if that one hadn't blasted. And I'm pretty sure that's a couple more than the last spike we had. Anyway, I won't say I'm over the moon with the progress on this plant, because it's progressing in a different way to all my others, which might mean it's not doing as well. It might just be the way it is. But certainly it can't stay in this pot, because the latest growth is right up against the edge of the pot. There won't be room for another bulb. But it can go back in this pot. It's certainly nowhere near too big for this pot. When some of these older bulbs come off, this can come back into the middle of the pot, and it'll have another 2 years worth of growth in this same pot. So I don't think this is ever going to be a giant plant like some of them, but nonetheless we've got blooms on it, and it's okay. I won't say it's doing brilliantly because I don't believe it is, but it's okay. I would say, apart from the Cymbidium I have actually lost one, but they're not all doing great. One just rotted in the pot. It just went downhill quite quickly and rotted. I think it probably got some sort of infection, probably bacterial. But whatever, it got thrown out. And this is the next worst performer. In other words, it's not filling its pot up like some of the others. Like this sort of thing. Fill in a pot, taking up all my grow space. And it's certainly not doing that. But we got a spike, we got a new growth, it's produced a spike, it's opened its blooms, and the blooms look good. So we'll see how it grows next year after a repot. We'll see how it does. Right. Now we'll move on to the comparisons, where this is where I sit down in my comfy chair and work on the laptop, because effectively these video clips have got to be put together to make the video, but then I've got to select a suitable point to generate a still for each one of these plants as they are now. And then I've got to take that into my photo editor and crop it so that it's going to fit next to the previous photo that we did, alongside each other, coming up next. So I shall be quite a long time processing this one, but it will get posted today. I mean, it's what the time is now, 1:45, so middle of the day. I shall have a bit of lunch, have a bit of a break, and then I'll sit down and process this and get it posted later today. And I hope you're still enjoying these project orchids. I will be running them on into next year. I know it says 2025 project orchids on the playlist and on the front of the videos, but from this one forward it will say 25-26, for the simple reason we started the project, I think the first video of the actual plants as a project video was in May. So I'm going to run it forward until May next year, so that we've actually got 12 months worth of, of views. So that may well incorporate the repot on this one, which would be included. So, right, let's go on to the comparison, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.